And when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to spend that day when all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Now, I know I was not even close to the original delivery, but there are very few who don't know this great and powerful speech. Every February, the United States of America only devotes one day to this courageous speaker, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He gave his life knowing that he would lead his people out of repression. If it were not for his career, devotion, and heroic words in his famous 1963 speech, I Have a Dream, Dr. King would not have captured such a magnificent audience. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, from 1929 to his assassination in 1968. His grandfather was a minister for the city since 1893. When Jr. took over his family's ministry after his father and grandfather, he only started with a few believers in his congregation. But with powerful messages and a large heart for the people, he quickly won over and increased his audience. As a passionate minister and civil rights activist, he took on the courageous role of president of the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and led the group in a non-violent protest inspired by Gandhi on his trip to India. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a well-educated pastor's child who saw firsthand segregated schools as a child and later went on to attend graduate school at 15 at Morehouse College. Had it not been for his family's tie in ministry and already known great public speaking skills, his speech would not have been as effective since he studied medicine and law. Years later, as a minister, he possessed the qualities of a great and effective public speaker at an early age in his career, such as effectiveness and topic of a speech, credibility, eye contact, and proper gestures. If he lacked in any of these areas, he would first have a decrease in his congregation and later lose his followers in the civil rights movement. Some major ideas he expressed in I Have a Dream was addressing every color and calling them to work together, not just pointing fingers at one group, even though his focus was the end of segregation, mainly in the African American community. This allowed him to capture a larger audience and connect with higher authority. He spoke upon justice for those oppressed. He promoted nonviolent acts to his followers, that words speak louder than a mob, which he has shown. Lastly, he urged freedom and connection between the peoples of this mighty nation. Although Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had many speeches addressing the civil rights movement, his deliveries were often similar due to the speeches being alike. His strongest tactics that I have noticed upon watching his speeches, not just this particular speech in general, was his sense of audience's reactions, such as his extended pauses when they roared over specific points. He would stop for a couple seconds up to a minute. Some other major effective tactics that I've noticed was his directness, approachability on issues, stance both physically and emotionally, had a constant facial expression, emphasized important words with tone of voice and volume, and elongated words and phrases on heightened issues. One specific time he elongated words took place in the middle of a speech speaking about boys and girls of Alabama. King always spoke from the heart and almost never looked down at notes or rarely even had notes. A few people know the fun fact that he was not even going to give this I Have a Dream speech, but was encouraged by his daughter before going on stage and decided to add it. It was also easier to make changes to his memorable speeches from the time slot allowance, since he was last on stage because no one had wanted to finish the rally. Fun fact. That being said, even though Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. repeated many words and phrases, he repeated what needed to be heard and needed to be done. If he had not had the background of public speaking in his family, his famous speech may not have been effective as the United States of America. King's speech, I Have a Dream, emphasizes almost every aspect of what makes a great public speaker that we have learned in the class this semester. Thank you.